So there is a special meeting in Lynn Haven scheduled for 1 o'clock. They're running late. The mayor is not there. The attorney is not there. And Commissioner Judy Vandergrift is not there yet. So we're not late, which is the good news. Now, I have just learned some new information I'm going to share with you, and then we're going to go to the meeting live, where they are going to have their facacta lawyer, the one who defends the police chiefs, David Marcy, I believe is his name. He will be there. He's the head of the police chief union, the Florida police chiefs, all that stuff. And so I'm eager to see how things go. At the last meeting on Tuesday, of course, there was the big confrontation between Mayor Jesse Nelson and Commissioner Jamie Warwick. Yeah, David Marcy is his name. And by the way, it is interesting. Yes, he is now the chief counsel for the state police chiefs, and he is the labor attorney. So he's the only one who's been invited by the mayor to come in and explain to Jamie Warwick and the commissioner and Commissioner Sam Peebles why they are so wrong. Calm down. Calm down. You remember, Jesse, if you haven't seen the last show yesterday, you got to see that show. But he was also this facacta lawyer, David Marcy. He was the general counsel also. He represented Moms Against. He was an award-winning prosecutor, an award-winning prosecutor at one time for MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, the same guy. So their special attorney to protect Chief Ramie used to be a prosecutor against drivers who have a medical condition, drunk drivers. That's going to be interesting. But I'm going to take a moment while we're waiting to thank an appropriate sponsor.
When your life is on the line, hire the lawyer who lives in our community, works in our community, and worships in our community. I'm El Saulene, your Panama City Beach lawyer. 850-215-0628.
Also, I need to correct a few things, refine a few things that I've been telling you. I've been telling you this, that the FDLE, right? We know that Chief Ramie was arrested on a second-degree misdemeanor. It was a notice to appear. He wasn't cuffed and stuffed. And so he was arrested. And I showed you that according to FDLE, if there's cause to believe of an officer's hasn't maintained his minimum good moral character standards, then they must conduct an internal investigation, the employing agency. And I pointed out that one of those triggers is an officer's arrest. All right. So I've been telling you that the city of Lynn Haven is violating the law by not doing it because their police officer, the chief, was arrested. But as often happens in statute and law, it turns out that there is a refinement in this, and it does not apply to Chief Ramie. Bernie, you were wrong. I kind of was a little bit. But I need you to know, because I'm not trying to be right, I'm trying to be accurate and correct. I want you to see the definition of what a law enforcement officer according to state statute. You ready for this? A law enforcement officer means any person other than a police chief. So that does not apply. This is state statute. A law enforcement officer defined by the state is any person other than a police chief who is a law enforcement officer. All right. So what does that mean? Well, that means that the city is not required by law, according to FDLE, to do an internal investigation on Chief Ramie. Now, still remember, Chief Ramie has clearly violated the policies and procedures, and the city is way off base by not following that, right? And I told you that they're trying to pretend that it's their jurisdiction to be the due process people. No, that's the prosecutors. They're the due process people. You're the follow the policies and procedures people. But here's what can happen and what is supposed to happen. So Chief Ramie, as we just said, is not defined as a law enforcement officer according to state statute. He's defined by a municipal officer because he's appointed. Okay. And so it says, state statute, whenever an elected or appointed municipal officer, Chief Ramie, is for a felony, removal from office. Okay. Suspension, removal from office, this type of thing. All right, so on the grounds of a suspension and filed with the Secretary of State, the governor may suspend from office any elected or appointed municipal officer for malfeasance, misfeasance, neglect of duty, habitual drunkenness, incompetence, permanent inability to perform official duties. Whenever any elected or appointed municipal official is arrested for a felony or for a misdemeanor related to the duties of office, or is indicted or informed against for the commission of a felony or misdemeanor, or state felony or misdemeanor, the governor has the power to suspend such municipal official from office. Okay, so it looks like the governor could do it if he chose to, if it was sent to him. Now let's jump into. So I had to make that distinction for you. Let's jump into the actual to the meeting, which should be taking place right now. All right, let's refresh this page and get it going here. I know that the mayor was late, but yeah, they're there. There's Dave.
The court date has been continued and is set for early next month.
I'm gonna rewind this if I can.
I would anticipate that the state attorney would make a decision about how to proceed on the case prior to that court date. And there's generally two options that the state attorney may have. One is to file a charging document that would indicate that the state attorney intends to prosecute Chief Ramie for the crime of leaving the scene of an accident involving property damage over $50, but with an unattended vehicle or an unoccupied vehicle. The other option the state attorney could elect to do is file a no information or a document declining to prosecute. Typically, what happens in cases where the state attorney elects not to prosecute, the state attorney or assistant state attorney making the decision will file this document and will generally indicate some reason why the decision was made not to move forward. And at this point, I cannot speculate whether the state attorney will move forward with a prosecution or will decline to prosecute. At this stage, the only information that is available right now is that Chief Ramie has been accused of leaving the scene. My understanding is he's also received several traffic infractions that would be akin to a speeding ticket, a non-criminal violation that is punishable only by fine.
He is lying. He is lying.
With my guidance and that of Mr. Obost, your city attorney,
wow.
There was a preliminary inquiry conducted by your staff, Ms. Gaynor and her staff, to initially evaluate whether or not the chief was on duty at the time that this occurred, and we concluded
He just said there's no information. He just got traffic tickets. I am showing you that there was a traffic violation. He was arrested.
A parking lot accident that occurred off duty, not involving any city vehicles.
Oh
Again, there's been some delay given the state attorney's recusal and the need to reassign another state attorney to review the case. We know that the incident was investigated by the Florida Highway Patrol. They prepared some offense reports, a offense report and a traffic crash report, which my understanding had been released as public records. And in there are some conclusions. But again, the trooper does not make a determination about whether or not prosecution is appropriate. They present their case to the state attorney, and we're still waiting on that response. During the course of this, the reassignment state attorney, and as these additional records have become available, your staff, through Ms. Gaynor and Assistant City Manager Jennifer Hodges, have actively monitored this situation. They're not sitting back passively. They're checking the docket as recently as this afternoon to determine whether or not there's been any action taken by the state attorney's office. They've been in frequent contact with me. I know they've been in frequent contact with Mr. Obos. Mr. Obos and I have spoken together on numerous times. And Mr. Obos and I have independently agreed on the course of action that I'm going to outline for you today. And we have presented that to the city in an effort to balance the issues. And as a near 20-year lawyer that spent the majority of my career representing commissions such as yourself, municipalities, districts, school boards,
police chief,
et cetera,
police chief.
I understand the importance of maintaining transparency and maintaining relationship and communications and the open exchange of information with the community. I understand the concerns that you as commissioners, as the governing body of the city of Lynn Haven, have regarding allegations made against your police chief, who is an agency head. But as your HR lawyer, one of my responsibilities is to advise city administration, and in some cases, the city board or the commission itself, on how to best reduce risk. How do we minimize the risk of liability? And that liability can come from many places. It can come from outside. It could come from members of the community. It could come from inside, and that could include employees. Although Chief Ramie is an agency head and he does serve at the discretion of the city manager, he is entitled to the same protections under Florida and federal law as any employee. And that includes the right not to be terminated for improper reasons.
Wow.
I say improper reasons, not suggesting that terminating him would be improper. We don't know the answer yet. Because the fundamental question here is your police chief going to be prosecuted for a crime or not?
That's not the fundamental.
If yes, then the decision can be made based on that information.
Oh my God, that's
If
not.
he's not going to be prosecuted, then the offense that he committed would be akin to a speeding ticket. So the issue before you may be, would this commission take the same action had he been accused of speeding? We don't know the answer to that yet because we're waiting on that final critical piece of information from the state attorney's
He's
office.
saying a hit and run is.
And I've advised the city manager and your assistant city manager, Ms. Hodges, on multiple occasions that there will be a time, and we anticipate that being in the very near future, when the state attorney will make a decision and will provide that critical piece of information from which your city manager can make the decision about whether discipline is appropriate, and if so, what level of discipline is appropriate. Because again, Chief Ramie, although he's an agency head, is entitled to the same protections that all of your city employees are. And that includes the right to have the information, employment decisions made based on facts, based on actual evidence, and not speculation, not based on emotion, and not based on people being understandably upset about the allegations that have been raised.
How about a video of a hit and run?
Issue a little bit more challenging is there's been issues raised that invoke protected health information that I'm not at liberty to discuss. Obviously, employees' protected health information is just that. It's confidential. It's not appropriate for discussion in the public. So unfortunately, I will not be able to answer any questions about that. However, there are protections under federal and state law involving medical conditions and personnel actions taken against employees that may suffer from medical conditions. And in this particular case, one of the critical factors we're waiting on is a determination about whether or not the protected health information is going to be factored into the state attorney's decision.
Wow.
And I'll pose a hypothetical, and this is not the condition that is being considered here, but in a hypothetical case, if a motorist suffers low blood sugar because they're a type 1 diabetic and has an accident, and the charging authority, in this case would be the state attorney's office in the First Judicial Circuit, determines that there was no culpability there because a medical condition is what resulted in the collision, that would be handled significantly different than if that employee intentionally engaged in some kind of reckless conduct. So as your HR lawyer, I have to balance not only the very critical and important and necessary transparency that your community expects and that you as commissioners and the city manager and the mayor demand, I also have to mitigate and balance in giving my advice on potential risk and legal exposure. Some of the legal exposure here could come externally and internally. And if the city manager, using her sole and exclusive authority to make determinations on personnel decisions at this stage without all of the information, including the critical information about whether or not protected health information caused or contributed to what occurred, it would be premature. And I've been very clear. I believe Mr. Obos has joined me in my position in communicating to your administration that making a decision prematurely without knowing the facts, these critical facts about whether or not the state attorney is going to credit protected health information is causing or contributing to this collision. In my hypothetical example, the diabetic who through no fault of his or her own suffered an issue that resulted in a traffic crash, it would be inappropriate to take personnel action because it would expose or may expose the city to liability that could cost tens of thousands of dollars. This is not a circumstance where we anticipate the decision to be 6 months down the road or even months down the road. We know from the publicly available docket that the court date is, I want to say it was first week in April. It's coming up. So I would reasonably anticipate that final critical piece of information that will allow your city attorney and myself as your HR counsel to provide guidance to your city manager on the appropriate way to handle this to mitigate risk, both internal risk and external risk from suits by your employees and from the community to ensure that the city police department is being operated correctly, appropriately.
When is the last time you've seen any employee at any city get this kind of consideration?
Not have confidence in your chief of police, but that decision, my recommendation is should be based on facts. It should be not based on rumors. It should not be based on speculation. It should not be based on.
How about based on the damaged car and the actual victim, David Marcy?
I can see social media. I've seen social media posts. I've seen some of the allegations that have been floated.
Allegation. He's arrested for allegation.
Some of that information that is out there floating around is untrue. And that's one of the reasons as your HR attorney that I focus very heavily on the facts and that I make recommendations and give advice on how to proceed to mitigate risk, to protect you as the city and your hard-earned reputation, that decisions are made based on the facts and not uncorroborated or unproven allegations. Now, please don't take anything I'm saying to judge in advance whether or not discipline is appropriate. I have no position. I don't know the facts. I decline to speculate. But once the state attorney makes the decision and this body knows whether or not your police chief is going to be prosecuted for a misdemeanor crime of leaving the scene of an accident causing over $50 of damage, with that information, then your city attorney will be armed with the information that, in my opinion, would be sufficient for her to make an appropriate decision, whatever that decision may be based on the facts.
That's not the standard. That is
And
not.
if I know City Manager Gaynor the way I think I do, she will be very reasoned, very thoughtful. She will consult with Mr. Obos as the city attorney and myself as HR counsel and come up with a well-reasoned decision that reflects the facts. Now, there's been some question about whether or not the city staff, myself, or somebody else should conduct a separate investigation into what's going on beyond the review of the available public records. And as your HR counsel, I've expressly advised against that. And here's why. First of all, we're all aware of the history of the city of Lynn Haven over the last several years. We're aware that several former officials have received some or have been indicted and have been prosecuted, and there's been allegations, some of which have been proven, some of which have not, about misconduct involving their official position. I am sensitive to those needs of the community to know what's going on, to know what their officials are doing. What I'm also sensitive of is to avoid the appearance of interfering with a third-party investigation. Highway Patrol should be able to investigate and make its recommendations to the state attorney's office without any interference,
They already have.
without any influence, without any suggestion by me as your HR counsel or any other city official.
They already have. They
I feel
charged.
very strongly that the state attorney should be able to review, evaluate the facts as it would any other citizen that was accused of a similar offense without interference, advocacy, or involvement of me as your HR counsel or any city official. My intent in advising the city to refrain from doing an investigation is twofold. One, it's already been investigated. I'd suggest that no agency in the state of Florida is more qualified to investigate traffic crashes than the Florida Highway Patrol. That's what they do. Similarly, as it comes to making prosecutorial decisions, State Attorney Barry and her staff are infinitely qualified to make prosecutorial decisions.
And the FHP said that Ramie lied to them, interfered with the investigation.
Engaged in the state attorney's office or highway patrol in an effort to speed it up, to get inside information about what was going to happen, to press for a decision, to press for a rationale about what decisions have been made or what decisions will be made.
So dishonest.
I believe that could be reasonably be interpreted as interfering with the investigation or the prosecutorial decision, or alternatively, trying to influence the outcome.
Great.
So my advice,
Let's find out if Larry Basford did that. Let's find out if Sheriff Ford did that. Let's find out if Ricky Ramie himself did that.
run its course
I'm glad you said that, David Martin.
from any member of the city without any allegations that the city or its officials tried to influence the outcome, and particularly without any allegations that your council or any city official tried to influence any witnesses that there may be to this case. Because once the state attorney makes its final decision, it'll be my opinion, absent some new information that we're not aware of, that at that point, your city manager will have sufficient information to consult with legal counsel and make a decision regarding personnel action. The last thing I'll mention, although I cannot discuss protected health information for any employee, I can tell you that your city manager has shared concerns that to the extent some information is out there in the community about Chief Ramie's health information, confidential information I'm not privy or not able to discuss with you, that one of the things she did is to ensure that he is competent, qualified, and fit for duty. So at your city manager's direction, Chief Ramie was directed to participate in a psychological and a medical fitness for duty evaluation by trained medical professionals. That's not your city lawyer making a decision. That's not a city official making a decision. That's not your city attorney or an HR person making a decision. Those are medical professionals that the city uses and has used for years. There was no special retention of any provider for this case. It was medical and psychological professionals that have been used on an ongoing basis. And both medically and psychologically, Chief Ramie has been cleared for full duty with no restrictions or limitations.
Oh, that just happened that night.
With that, Mayor, that's the end of my presentation. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to address them.
Thank you, Mr. Marcy, for that presentation. I know a few weeks ago or last week we had talked about, and you basically answered it, but maybe I reiterate it again. We talked about the option of conducting an internal review with having Chief Ramie on administrative leave while that review was conducted. Also spoke with city manager about that. Then we followed up with you and you gave us advice against that, having an internal review prematurely before the case was handled from the legal side of it. Could you, I guess, give us a more shortened response to that? So, because that's been some of the questions, but that was something that was recommended, is that we have an internal review with Chief Ramie on administrative leave, but you advised against that.
Yes, but let me unpack that. I think there's two separate issues, Mayor. The first one is whether or not the chief should be placed on administrative leave pending the outcome of this investigation, including the charging decision. The city, over the years, in the approximately 9 years I've represented them, has had other employees that have been charged with crimes off duty, not involving any city vehicles, not involving their official position. And my recommendation to not place Chief Ramie on administrative leave is consistent with how this city has treated other employees that have been charged with similar low-level misdemeanor offenses. So again, although I'm not suggesting that I'm in any way condoning, approving, endorsing the allegations against him, at this point, they are still allegations. And in order to be consistent with how the city has treated other employees under similar circumstances, it was my advice.
He is saying that it is a low-level violation to do a hit and run and damage somebody's car.
View. And that internal review started the minute that it was reported. So, and that internal review started when the city manager and her staff immediately evaluated whether or not Chief Ramie was on duty or his conduct involved any city equipment, and established it did not. That review continues to be ongoing as the docket is actively monitored, as the available public reports are actively monitored. When those reports are available, they're reviewed, they're forwarded to me for a review. So the inquiry has been going on, Mr. Mayor, from the outset. My qualification to not completing it is, as I mentioned before, not interviewing witnesses, not doing things that could be perceived, rightfully or wrongfully, as interfering in the outcome of the state attorney's review, the highway patrol's investigation.
That already happened because Chief Ramie lied, according to the FHP report, when they asked him what happened. Ramie interfered with the election investigation itself.
And its administrators to be able to say the city of Lynn Haven and its staff had absolutely nothing to do with the decision-making process of either the Florida Highway Patrol to issue the citations and submit the one charge to the state attorney's office and also for the state attorney.
Ramie himself issued a statement that he has been cooperating with the investigation himself.
Charging document or files the document electing not to charge, at that point, we won't need to initiate an inquiry. We'll be able to conclude the inquiry that's been ongoing since early January.
Thank you. I think another question that's raised is whether or not Chief Ramie was arrested. There have been different emails and different statements that have been made that due to Florida statute that mentions that notice to appear is considered synonymous with being arrested, though maybe not put in handcuffs, charged, and booked. Could you give us a little clarity on that? Because there's some question as to whether or not he was actually arrested based on how that citation was delivered.
Yes, sir. The term arrest is not defined in Florida statute or law. In some contexts, to be arrested means to physically be handcuffed, detained against one's will, and that did not happen here. What happened is a citation was issued and was served on Chief Ramie, and he was given a court date. That court date was sometime in March, and it's since been continued to that April date. So using the accepted definition.
A court date for an arraignment?
No, Chief Ramie was not arrested. He was issued a citation that has potential criminal penalties. In reality, would be a fine.
Nobody
As a former prosecutor is somebody that is familiar with this type of offense from a prosecutorial capacity, albeit in the Second Judicial Circuit. The standard typical punishment for an offense as Chief Ramie was issued a citation for it would be a fine. So no, Mayor, I'm comfortable in saying he was not arrested. And based on or using the language that we see in court decisions, such as false arrest and things like that, that would require somebody to be detained against their will, and that did not happen in this case.
Wow.
Thank you. Commission, how I would like for us to proceed is to go in seat order for the questioning. That way each one can have their time. And then if you have additional questions, then we'll come back again in that same order. Okay. Commissioner Peebles.
Thank you. So I just want to start off by saying, by the questions I'm asking, I'm not trying to imply anything. I'm just trying to fill some knowledge gaps here for myself and for anybody else that might have the same questions. So as far as the arrest thing goes, in the incident report we got from the Florida Highway Patrol, it says in the top right-hand corner, arrest. So that's a bit confusing. Can you elaborate on what the difference is?
I'm not familiar with, I mean, I've read the report, but I don't know what goes into FHP's forms. I can tell you that in 19 years of defending false arrest claims, a false arrest claim does not exist unless somebody is detained against their will. I can't answer on behalf of the Highway Patrol. I can tell you that in my opinion, based on 19 years of practice in law, in defending law enforcement and other agencies and monitoring cases that involves improper illegal arrests, being issued a citation and given a court date does not constitute it.
Were you lying then? Are you lying now?
A little bit, yeah, a few more.
Chronic and habitual.
The administrative leave thing. Is there anything negative that would happen from putting him on administrative leave? Because if you look at the Florida state statute, the way I read it, it says not to suspend without pay, not to demote, and not to terminate before they're charged, but it doesn't say anything about administrative leave with pay. The reason I ask is because I understand that there's other employees that have gone through the same thing, but being in the military myself and holding different roles, when you have certain situations, it's not the same as just being a normal employee. So like, if, let's say someone was working at Public Works or something, and they were in a traffic issue, the public does not feel unsafe or does not feel like they're not represented or whatever, because it doesn't say the city of Lynn Haven, blah, blah, blah. When someone holds a position like a department head, citizens could possibly lose trust if we don't do something about it. So my question is, why are we looking at the chief of police situation as if it's the same as a normal employee when it's just simply not the case? You know, we were talking about risk and mitigation of risk. I do risk management for a living, and there is risk if you don't do something. There's risk on both sides, and you can't just look at risk of, you know, the litigation side of things, right? There's also the risk of, well, what if something isn't done to show a sign of faith? For example, we have a police officer, a very good man, that just had, he had a medical issue to where he is trying to raise money to get his hospital bills. Well, there are people that are upset at the idea that we haven't shown them enough trust, that they're not going to this benefit. You know, I can't say that as a fact. That's what they're saying, of course. But it's just, there's risk on both sides of things. And I don't see why just showing a sign of faith is mitigating the risk of other sides of things. So my question is, if we were to do administrative leave until the court date, we can reassess then. Is there a negative impact on us as the commission, as us as the city, for recommending that to the city manager? Because I feel like that's a perfect way to say, hey, everybody, listen, we hear you. We're going to put him on administrative leave until things are.
Who is Mayor Nelson texting? Public record request.
Gaps.
Yes, sir, and I appreciate the question. I'd like to start off by distinguishing, and you know, you tried to draw a distinction between a chief and, quote, normal employees. As an HR lawyer, we do recognize that different levels of employment may have different standards. So I think that's where you were headed. I recognize that. But it does not allow the city, or should not permit the city, to unilaterally make decisions without the information. Now, I guess that I'll start off by saying it is legal and authorized to place the chief on administrative leave pending the outcome of this. That was contemplated early on, and it was decided not to occur. And I can tell you that in representing government agencies throughout the state of Florida, in my opinion, based on 19 years of practice in HR law, that's consistent with best practices of other employers. So when I mentioned that the city had handled other situations by not putting the employee on leave, the basis for that, or support for my opinion in that regard, comes based on almost 2 decades of experience working cases statewide. But you are correct that it would be illegal to do so. Now, what's the adverse part, the negative part? Well, there are some other risks, and you talked about risk management, and one of the risks that I have to take into consideration when I am advising your city administration is the risk that may arise from an employee being placed on leave, even with pay, for a potential medical issue that involves PHI. And that is one of the things that goes into taking into account. And by no means is that crediting any statement or response that was made. At this point, it's premature. But what we also can't do is we can't disregard facts that are not expedient, or just like we can't credit them. So part of the risk management process is weighing all of those factors, Commissioner, and you're absolutely right. Risk management can come from all different angles. And I've done that in giving advice to the administration, and ultimately that decision lies with the city manager, and it is consistent with the advice that I gave her. And one of the other things that we have to be careful of as well, in that totality of circumstances, is public statements that are made not only in meetings such as this one, but outside, that demonstrate an animus or a bias against an employee that's suffering from these circumstances. If there's public employees, if there's members of the commission that are making statements to the public, affirmatively stating they don't agree with that the chief is suffering from a medical condition that's covered under protected health information, that demonstrates a level of animus and bias that I have to take into consideration when I weigh the risks about potential litigation, that if this were to take into litigation, and so one of the risks to Chief Ramie would be reputational harm. And I understand that there's concerns about that, but this is a relatively minor offense. I've got statewide experience representing governments with similar offenses that take a similar approach.
Do not be afraid of it.
And when the information is available, I have every confidence that your city manager is going to make an appropriate decision on how to handle it.
We don't.
Because I've been working with her for years, and she and her staff are very astute and in tune with that. So I don't know whether I gave you too much information, Commissioner. It is certainly a discretionary decision, and based on the totality of those factors, my recommendation was not to place him on administrative leave. Ultimately, it was the city manager's decision, and I believe she concurred with that.
Yeah, don't be afraid.
Then I think the next or the last thing on the list is, why shouldn't we make that decision now? And I respectfully suggest there's been no change in circumstances between earlier and now. If there are any changes in circumstances, I respectfully suggest they weigh in favor of maintaining the status quo, because there's been some very public statements made about Chief Ramie, the factual circumstances that are being investigated or considered by the state attorney's office, and some conclusions that are made that are out and amongst the public, that are being consumed by the public. And I really urge that the city to be cautious and not to change the status quo when there's evidence out there that some folks in the city have taken a very adversarial position against Chief Ramie.
Against you.
If decisions need to be made based on facts, I will be the first one, as will Mr. Obosh, your city attorney, to stand up and be able.
All right, I have one. David Marcy, you suck and you lie, and you have bad judgment, and you're leaving out the facts. By the way, here's a question one of them need to ask. Hold on. Okay, so one of the questions that needs to be asked is, why, looky here, the bottom fleeing the scene of a crash with an injury. Why did State Attorney Larry Bassford say that he fled the scene of an accident with injury when he wrote a letter to Governor DeSantis? And why does Governor DeSantis is today? Why does Governor DeSantis? Sorry. Why does Governor DeSantis? Does his executive order say that he is charged with leaving the scene of an accident with injury? With injury. All right. Is that a rumor? I'm going to help David Marcy out. Hey, use me as an example, Marcy. You suck. You're a shitty lawyer. You're leaving out information, and you're a hack. All right? Sue me for defamation. Oh my God.
Sir, well, I can address it very succinctly. There is a significant amount of difference between what the public says and what this body does and what Chief Ramey's employer does. That is a significant difference. As a public official, all of you, as elected officials, as an appointed city manager, are subject to public scrutiny. And the public can speak out for or against city officials, and that includes Chief Ramey. The difference is when there's information out there prepared or presented by some members of the city, including perhaps some members of this commission, that completely discount Chief Ramey's claim of a medical condition, that by changing the course right now and placing him on administrative leave, even with pay, causes reputational harm. It certainly suggests that there's some superior knowledge by the commission that doesn't exist. And again, I strongly urge and caution and have urged and cautioned, not just in this personnel action, in all personnel actions, to make decisions based on facts. And in my opinion, based on some of the public statements that have been made that could be attributable to city officials, including members of this commission,
Don't be afraid of
changing Chief Ramey's status at this time could be viewed as punitive. And if there is ultimately litigation involving those decisions, I would expect that's how it would be portrayed.
Don't be afraid.
And getting back to the risk management and the balancing of risks, there's nothing that's changed since December 30th and now that warrants a change in his administrative leave status, in my opinion. Now, ultimately, those are management decisions. I don't make those decisions. That decision would be up to your city manager. But my role is to give the best advice I can to take into all of those risk management issues, internal and external, and come up with a charter course that I believe is the safest for the city, that protects the city's hard tax dollars in not having to pay tens of thousands of dollars in defending litigation costs or placing somebody on administrative that might be perceived as punitive based on some public comments that have been made that really impugn Chief Ramey.
Don't be afraid of this dude. He's a hack.
Thank you.
Yes, Commissioner.
Here's the executive order.
Thank you, Mayor.
So I want you to see this. This is the executive order from Governor Ron. I'm sorry. This is the letter from Larry Bassford, the state attorney on the left. He told Governor DeSantis that there needs to be a review of the case against Richard Ramey for leaving the scene of an accident with injury. With injury. It's also what the governor's executive order says. Somebody needs to ask Marcy, David Marcy, that lawyer here, the facacta lawyer, what's up with the injury? Like, why does it say with injury, but we never mentioned that? Is that just rumor and innuendo in the executive order too? Don't be afraid of this, dude.
So, and then of course things were explained to us, but
Pat Perno.
why would it take a month and a half for us to know about the infractions and the citations and
Question.
everything that happened? So can you expound, or did you talk to everybody along the way? Because it sounds like, when did you come in on this?
Commissioner Perno, but I can tell you it was relatively early. I can tell you I don't get involved in the communications between city administration.
Because the reason he's asking that is the commissioners learned it from my story. That's how they learned about it. All these guys tried to keep it from the four commissioners. And that's what Pearl's asking.
Timing, unfortunately, I'd have to refer you to either your city attorney, Mr. Obos, or the city manager, Ms. Gaynor. I don't have any further input on or information on that, Commissioner, to be able to answer your question.
Because you're a liar.
We publicly went over the timeline in our pre-commission meeting a while back.
Mhm.
And then, I mean, that's when at that time, we sat and said, status quo, let things.
Just say you learned about it from my show. They were hiding it.
That's why we're here at the special meeting today, for you to explain things. But I really would hope that we can get that ironed out, so people can know exactly, when he was issued the citations, when it was, well, we found out when it was brought to city manager's attention and how everybody was working on it. But
February 6th.
it seemed like, from what I heard, he didn't have prior knowledge of the criminal citation, only the civil citations. So is that normal?
I can't answer that, sir, because I've not spoken to Chief Ramie. So I'm not trying to be evasive. I'm giving you all the information I have, but
Well, I just would hope the public would want an explanation on
Yep.
that.
Look, he doesn't know anything. He's got amnesia.
That's my only hang up right now. And
I think, as I understand it, that the criminal citations didn't come, or the criminal citation didn't come till mid-February,
February
which at
6th.
that point, we were informed about it at that point
Right.
when the criminal citation came. I think when the
Ooh, he's lying.
incident happened and then the civil citations were given, that he paid those tickets, handled it, with his insurance agency. And I think initially we weren't informed because it was something that happened off duty, not in company cars. But then once the criminal citation came, that's when we were updated and informed about it at that
But
time.
the criminal citation was uploaded
February 6th.
prior to the civil
That's right.
citation.
They were February 9th. That's
According
right.
to, well, that's
You
the
see
story
what
I've
that
gotten. The criminal citation came uploaded on the 6th.
That's right, Pat.
He was handed civil citations on the 10th.
On the 9th.
So
Yeah, what about that,
Okay.
Mayor?
just thought that we might want to explain that.
Yeah, come
So
on.
is there any explanation for that?
Marcy
I
won't
think
know. I don't know.
Commission probably found out a week after the criminal citations were uploaded. Or I guess the better question will be, when were we informed that the criminal citations were uploaded? Because they could be uploaded and we still didn't know. That I think that's really the issue. Isn't so much
Nope.
when they were uploaded as much as when were we informed,
But Jamie Ward,
when
no.
did we as a city staff know they were uploaded?
Yep.
And then when did we receive the information?
Commissioner Ward
Because they
knows.
could be uploaded on the 6th and we still, as a staff, not know until 10 days later. So if we don't know, then we can't inform about what we don't know. So
They're
I
lying
think
over their
I
lies.
think that was in the timeline as to when it was discovered that we did know. So we able to answer that question as to when was city staff alerted to the criminal citation
Look at
being
Ricky Gator's
uploaded?
freaking out because she lied.
Mr. Mayor, I can't answer that. I would defer to your staff on that. I can tell you that my understanding is the citation was issued, but it doesn't have his signature on it. So if there's a summons,
Yes, it
it would
did.
be, the citation would be completed, it would be uploaded, and then it would have to be sent.
That's not true. Trooper Sisk.
And the officer gives me a citation and I sign it. Obviously, if my signature's on it, we know when I received it. So I think there's two factors that would need to be viewed there. Is when is Chief Ramie received it, which I do not know because I've not interviewed him. And two, then when city staff was there. I would not be comfortable using the upload date as the date Chief Ramie received it, because my understanding was it was a summons that either had to be mailed to him or sent to him in some way other than simply presenting it to him in person.
He had an arraignment date, David Marcy. This is wonderful. It's so good.
Staff on those matters.
Yes, sir. So in the timeline, we did put in our timeline, it was uploaded on the 6th. No one knew it was uploaded. When Chief Ramie, those citations were dropped off to Chief Ramie on the 10th, on a Saturday, by that FHP officer. Chief Ramie went on Sunday to pay those citations. When he went to pay those citations, that's when he saw that it had been uploaded to a criminal citation. On Monday, Chief Ramie made me aware, but said exactly what you said. There's no thumbprint, there's no signature. I called FHP to see what's going on because no one knew up until that point. And he tried to contact FHP.
She said she knew mid-January in her timeline. This is so great. This is fantastic.
Have to report that to commission, which would have been Wednesday, and the story broke.
The story broke by who, Vicky? Say my name. Say my name. She just gave a totally different timeline.
No, I was just looking for a full explanation in public, so thank you.
Now it's a
Any
story
additional
broke.
questions for Mr. Marcy?
Say my name.
I think at this point, we'll take one break. And I'm not skipping you, Commissioner Ort.
You gotta. They
Is
gotta.
there anything that you would like to add to this conversation before?
They're gonna take a break because they need to come up with a story before.
Questions from the commission, or so I'll
They're gonna take a break after like 50 minutes.
All right, thank you. All right, Commissioner Ward.
So the first question I have is, Chief Ramie is an at-will employee, correct?
Correct.
As an at-will employee, you don't necessarily have to have a reason. If you decide to terminate them, you don't necessarily have to have a reason to terminate them unless you're violating some law such as discrimination, whistleblower, stuff like that. So
But that's a partial explanation. First of all of your employees are at will, except my understanding is the city manager is the only one that has an employment contract. So with regard to at-will employment, Chief Ramey's position or his status as an at-will employee is identical to all others. But you are correct. As an at-will employee, somebody can be fired for any reason or no reason, as long as it's not any legal reason. Here, when we have the implication of a protected health condition that may give rise to a potential civil action, it's best practice to have a reason. Because if there is no reason and an employer relies just on the at-will employment doctrine, if an employee files a suit and alleges that the termination was for an improper reason, as a litigation attorney, if I don't have a stated reason for the separation or the termination, it's impossible or incredibly difficult to defend an employer's decision on why they took action if they don't state why they took action. And that applies across the board, both public and private sector commissioners.
So if the city did take action, let's say, for example, they did terminate them, what would be the legal ramifications if it was determined a wrongful termination?
Well, my analysis regarding this particular factual case are confidential. Because we're still in the middle of this incident. I can talk generally about factors that would apply to evaluate whether or not a termination in the hypothetical that you posed was for a legitimate reason or some other reason, such as improper animus about membership in a protected class. A protected class could be race, sex, gender. It could.
They're claiming that Ramie is in a protected class because in his statement, said that he had a medical condition, which is why he did not exchange information with the victim whose car was crashed into. Ramie said, I had a medical condition after he left the car at 3:30 in the morning, and now he is in a protected class according to the facacta law.
Statements attributed to senior officials or elected officials that talk adversely about an employee's race, and then an employee was terminated and they alleged race discrimination, but the employer does not have a reason for the termination other than relying on the at-will employment doctrine. It's difficult or impossible for litigation counsel to be able to say, no, that employee was not terminated because of race. You, the jury, should ignore those comments, those negative comments about the terminated employee's race.
How about, hey, Mark, how about all the other stuff? How about a trend and a pattern of unethical behavior that violates policy and the police officer's code of conduct? How about that, Marcy?
Commissioner Peebles, that you've got all of these factors that have to be taken into consideration, and a decision is made by me as your HR counsel to give advice, and then ultimately by the city attorney as the decision maker on employee matters, what is in the best interest of the city. So it's not a checklist.
Look, 3 commissioners could vote to fire this awful law firm that they have with Kevin Ovos and Cole Davis and all the rest.
Show that the employment decision in the hypothetical, the termination under the at-will doctrine, was substantially motivated by some improper animus. In my hypothetical, we use the race discrimination example.
But there are tort limits for those, right?
I'm sorry, there are what limit?
Limits on how much someone can sue the city.
I don't understand the
Tort
question.
limits, like,
Dollar amount limits?
Yeah,
yes.
300,000.
Yes, but they're substantial.
You never worried about it.
You know how much that is?
In the tort context, it's capped at $200,000. Under the federal law, employment discrimination statutes, there is no cap.
But this wouldn't fall under federal law, would it?
It could, yeah, a discrimination case based on protected health information, medical condition would be actionable under the Americans with Disabilities Act. It also could be actionable under the Rehabilitation Act of 1973.
Okay.
Don't worry about that.
If,
He left the bar.
let's say if the commission decided to take any action on this, could we be sued personally, or would it have to be the city that would be sued?
I would have to defer to your board counsel. That's a question that's outside my purview as HR counsel.
So for a discrimination action, typical, as Mr. Marcy's talking about,
See how they're
there's no
narrowing it?
individual liability for the commissioners.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, there's lawyers are smart and innovative sometimes and can come up with different ways to try to attach individual liability for certain types of cases, but
Qualified
there
immunity.
doesn't appear to be any easy path to that here.
Right.
Do the right thing anyway.
That's all. No, actually, I do have one more question. I know this one, the criminal one's still open, but then the civil citations, right? And as I think Commissioner Peebles had brought it up about, we're holding the police department heads to a higher standard, especially the police chief, since they're the enforcement of the law. And if someone got civil citations, but then not just the civil citations, but other reasons that might have brought negative publicity to the city, it could, gosh, I can't remember the question I had, but that could be a viable reason to terminate somebody.
It could be, yes.
Right.
That would be within the discretion of the city manager to make that determination.
So he does have civil citations that he has paid, and there have been prior actions to this that have bring negative light to the city, and us as the commission
Brought shame to the
could,
city over and over.
take action on that.
That's a complicated analysis. First of all, yes, there have been prior citations. I've not personally verified that they've been paid. I've got no reason to dispute that. I just don't know that as a fact. When we're looking at off-duty conduct, and I think what you're alluding to is it's generally referred to as conduct unbecoming a government official.
Right.
Yes, that can be a bona fide avenue to take disciplinary action, but off-duty conduct has to be more scrutinized than on-duty conduct. But yes, it could theoretically be, and again, that would be within the management discretion of your city attorney.
Okay.
Or excuse me, your city manager.
Right. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Vandegrift.
Yes, I don't have a question.
All right, thank you. Are there any other additional questions from any of the council?
If no one does, I'd like to make a statement and a motion if I can.
Any questions for the city attorney? You look so different. It must be the haircut. Any questions for Mr. Jackson? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Marcy.
Thank you, Mayor.
Are there any final recommendations that you have for us as a city commission?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I recommend that the city maintains its current course. We have an estimated 2 or 3 week conclusion date based on Chief Ramey's next court date. I would expect, based on my experience as a former prosecutor, we would see that charging decision made before that court appearance in early April. And then in my opinion, once that information is known, then your city manager will have sufficient information to be able to make a decision and evaluate whether or not discipline is appropriate and what discipline there is. Again, with one of the critical factors being, was this conduct driven by, influenced by, caused by some kind of medical condition beyond the employee's control, much like the diabetic analogy that I used. I don't recommend there being
on the fact that this should be resolved in the next few weeks, hopefully 2 to 3 weeks, that we wait until the conclusion of those legal matters before we take action,
Yes, Mr.
based
Mayor.
on the idea that it should be concluded in the next 2 to 3 weeks.
And that if that is not resolved within the next 2 or 3 weeks, I recommend the commission take that up to reevaluate at that time.
Got it. So your recommendation is that we take, and the reason I'm repeating this is so we can have clarity. I'm not trying to be funny. It's for clarity.
Well, you are funny.
Okay.
You're hilarious, man.
So, because everybody's going to misconstrue, you're going to go post on Facebook what he said, what he didn't say. So we're having this for clarity. And also because we have a different note taker today. So I want to make sure that, okay. So, so your recommendation is that we take no action based on the idea that this should be resolved in the next 2 to 3 weeks. And if it is not resolved in the next 2 to 3 weeks, then we reconvene to discuss the matter at that time as to what action should be taken.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. With the
Okay,
understanding that city staff will be continuing to actively monitor and confer with council.
got it. Is there a motion to receive the recommendation of the city council or
Can I
the
ask-
labor attorney?
Can I ask a question first? If this does fall under what we talked about earlier, a federal law, a federal law lawsuit, would that be covered by our insurance?
Yes.
I don't think either your city attorney or I can give assurance opinions or
Yes,
coverage
we are.
determination, certainly nothing that will be binding. I can tell you as a litigation counsel for the city of Lynn Haven, and I've been litigating cases, again, almost 10 years. We have defended other cases alleging disability discrimination brought against the city. But I have to be clear that I don't work for the insurance company. I haven't read the contract and I can't give a coverage determination. And this commission should not rely on that in making any decision.
Hey, you left out the
Do you
part
happen
they
to know,
always
city
have
attorney?
covered.
So I'm not as familiar with the city's insurance policies as I used to be, but I can say that generally a labor type of claim like this, if one were to come, would be covered by employment practices liability insurance, which I believe
That's right.
the city does have.
Yeah, no shit.
Thank you.
You have any response to that?
Jennifer Hodges, Assistant City Manager. Anytime we have a case like that, our insurance company will do coverage. They will actually provide us documentation on what they will and won't cover, and if it's limited. So until the case is before them, I can't answer that. It's done through a legal review at that time.
How about tell us what's happened in the past? Huh? They're not doing that, are they? Dishonest people.
Any additional questions?
Any additional
All
commentary?
right. Is there a motion to receive the recommendation of
What about a
labor
different
attorney?
motion? Jamie, don't back down. Perno will do it. Perno's going to do
I'll
it.
motion that we continue as we are and wait for the outcome as this labor attorney stated.
All right, there's a motion. Is there a second?
Vandergriff will second it. from the phone. Why?
Second.
Told you.
All right, there's been a motion by Commissioner Perno, second by Commissioner Vandegrift. Comments from the public.
Ooh, comments from the public.
Ms. Parker.
Ooh, this is the Beacon of Bay County. I didn't know they were having comments from the public.
Jerry Parker, Rep Place.
Special meeting.
Did any of you read the code of ethics that the police chief signed? Can I get an answer?
Nope.
I'm hearing 2 yeses. Nobody's going to answer me? Well, let me tell you what it says. It says it doesn't matter if he's on duty or off duty.
Thank you.
Doesn't matter. He has a responsibility to show integrity
Ding, ding.
on his office as chief of police.
Mhm.
I cannot believe that you guys are acting like and trying to sweep this under the rug,
Yep.
just as usual. You won't even put his name on the agenda. I mean, what kind of, who are you protecting?
Yeah, it's bigger than you
You're
think.
not working for the citizens. The citizens are outraged. But what y'all are doing, basically, what I see
Classifying themselves.
is Vicky Gaynor, Nelson, and Vandegrift combining together to protect Ricky Ramie. This is not his first offense, guys.
And Pat Perno.
I mean, how many times does he get? How many strikes? That's okay with you?
Yep, it is.
That's okay with anybody of you? Pratt, I talked to you extensively. That's okay with you?
Mayor, if I may, can I converse? Okay. Ms. Parker, I know we talked for like a half hour after the last meeting. And I know we agreed on one thing, to disagree on exactly what you're saying right now. But I assured you that there will be an action, and that action will come at the hands of the city attorney at the point in which the full adjudication of the law is determined. And I'm going to stand by that to protect the city of Lynn Haven in the manner in which it's been explained to us by an HR attorney and a city attorney. Not me. It's just my feeling as a commissioner, no emotion as you're showing, no personal anguish. I'm standing here as a commissioner of Lynn Haven, trying to just, in my right mind, frame of mind, acting as a commissioner to protect the city at all costs. If we do anything now, okay, it could jeopardize the city in a lawsuit.
Can I interrupt you for a moment, please?
Thank you, Jerry.
It would show good faith to the citizens if you were to put him on suspension with pay. I don't care if it's with pay or out pay.
Yep.
But do something to show goodwill, because you have lost the trust of the public, period. The video shows it.
Right.
What more evidence do you need?
But you're not talking to me anymore when you interrupted.
Thank you. Additional public commentary. Ms. Moore, then Mr. Walker, and Mr. Hines.
Beacon of Bay County, Jody Moore.
You know, if you guys want to wait a few weeks, that's
Could you
fine.
state your name for the record,
Jody
please?
Moore,
Thank you.
which I don't actually have to say my name or my address or anything, but I do it anyway. I don't care if people.
Could you
know where I
please
live.
continue with your comments?
Yes, I
Thank you.
certainly will. I personally don't care if the commission waits, a few weeks. I have a feeling it'll just get continued in court, but, because that's the MO. But go ahead and wait and see you don't have to. As I'm glad that it's already been established that Mr. Ramie is an at-will employee, because there's been some information that he wasn't. You could fire him at any time, and there is ample reason to already fire this man. He's got a small little letter in his personnel file that would be a good reason.
Yep.
One thing when I'm listening to the lawyer up here, it sure sounds like he's engaging in comment that could appear to be threatening to people
right.
like myself and to some on the commission.
right.
If they make comments, they might open themselves up to litigation and so forth. I don't appreciate that. I know that his role is to, advise the city, but we also can't have a chilling effect on freedom of speech, and we have to be very careful. Judge Walker in Tallahassee actually affirmed that. I'm glad that the lawyer amended he thought the incident happened in January, but it was December 30th, as has been said. The arrest report from FHP was actually 1/5. And I don't understand the timeline, so I'm just kind of clarifying some things here. Ms. Gaynor said herself that it was reported to her in January at some time. I guess that's when Ramie came to her when paying the fines weren't enough. This commission did not find out until Valentine's Day when it was revealed on social media. Okay, it didn't come from your city manager, and she should have told you. Ramie did leave the scene without giving us information. I think he even admitted that. He said he had a medical condition that caused him not to leave. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the attorney said that the information was exchanged, and it wasn't right away. He said that he wasn't. He was actually chased down by a citizen, and then he did give his information when he had to. You could see the video. Unless the video has been tampered with, he got out of the car, he looked at the damage that he caused, he got back in his car, and he drove away. I don't know what happened after that, but that's what happened. Mr. Marcy wants to come back up here. He keeps talking about misinformation. I'd like to know what misinformation is out there. I want facts and I want truth. And so if there's information that's floating around out there that's incorrect, I'd like to hear it myself.
Right.
Thank you. Couple of responses to that. Number one, I didn't find out about it on social media. Maybe other commissioners did.
No, you knew.
I didn't.
Vicky
I found out about it from a phone call from my city manager.
In mid-January.
So I don't know how other commissioners found out about it. I haven't asked them, but I found out about it with a phone call from the city manager.
Right.
I did ask, why am I now just finding out about this? Why didn't you tell me before? And so I wasn't elated that on Valentine's Day that I found out about it. However, she did explain the reasonings as to why it wasn't brought to my attention before now. And I said, okay, doesn't mean I agreed with it. Doesn't mean I liked it. Her and I did have a discussion about it. And we said, okay, moving forward, let's try to change how we, do our communication in matters such as this. I think in one sense, although yes, our police chief is a higher profile employee, I think is how we would say that, or how I say that he is a higher profile employee, that in her initial, she looked at it as if another employee was to do it as in regards to the citation. And so she thought that to be a HR matter. And as commissioners, we don't know every single individual that's hired and fired.
That's
done within HR. I see new people and I'm like, oh, hey, how are you doing? Or I did meet probably more new employees than the other commissioners because of the confined office space that we had. And so when I walk in, I would see them meeting with Ms. Hodges, and then she would introduce me to them. And then they may be gone in 2 weeks. It's too hot outside, or it's this, or it's that, so they're going pretty quickly. So as the city manager explained it to me when I did question why we're now just finding out about this, it was because, hey, I thought it was more of a employee personnel issue with it being the civil citations, paying the fines, et cetera. And then at the time when she found out about it, the citations, as we understood it, weren't delivered at that time. And so there was nothing to report in regards to a citation to the commission besides, hey, he had an accident and this is something that his insurance company is handling, versus now he has these citations. So I wanted to clarify for the record, I can't speak for the other commissioners. I don't know if they've told you. I found out from the city manager. So each person that has emailed me and asked me, I found out from the city manager.
Jamie,
express my,
found out.
My dislike for finding out at the time that I did find out. However, now we know how to move forward with that. Also,
look, Jesse and Vicky Gaynor, they found out in mid-January. My story broke February 14th. They knew a month before the other commissioners. By someone and exchanges information. I think the clarity Mr. Marcy was making is that the information was exchanged. So he did state that he did leave and that information was exchanged at that time. And I think Mr. Marcy is also stating, for whatever reason, people think people are trying to stifle their freedom of speech, but you're standing here speaking freely. So I'm really confused on that. Please help me understand that every person that comes up here and says that we're stifling or we're suppressing their freedom of speech is speaking while they say that. I don't understand it. I'm really No, you're not. You're not baffled.
Your freedom of speech, you can't stand up and disrespect people and slander people at the same time. I mean, freedom of speech doesn't allow anyone to do that. That's the issue, is that you want to be able to stand right here and badger people, bully people, belittle people, slander people, and talk down to people.
Like
you
he's
think
doing.
that's okay.
That's
not okay.
Woo! He doesn't understand.
I will discuss anything with anyone respectfully. I don't agree with Mr. Walker and everything that he says. But most of the time, and I think all the time, he is very respectful in his comments. And afterwards, depends on what the comments are, we might have some discussion and exchange and interaction. However, I don't consider him to be disrespectful in his tone and his gestures. So let's clarify for the freedom of speech, okay? And let's also clarify that I'm not the one that asked that public comments not be made by people beyond Bay County. The news did report that falsely, all right? But I'm not the one that stated that or brought that up. I'm willing for anyone to come up and speak. Not trying to stop you from speaking publicly. What Mr. Marcy was stating is the facts, is that any of us are liable for what we say in this public setting. Any of us are liable for what we post on social media. And as we know, this is America and people can sue you for anything. So we know that. So Mr. Marcy isn't trying to suppress your freedom of speech and say, hey, don't say this and don't say that. He's just letting us know that there could be potential consequences to the things that we say, and we can't always hide behind freedom of speech when we say it. So you can't say what you want to say about anyone to someone and hide behind our First Amendment rights as if it's okay. There are consequences to that. All right. So that's the freedom of speech part.
Okay, let me just say, he's a public figure. He has no idea what he's talking about. I've been sued for defamation twice. I'm a public figure. My other public figures, he has no idea what he's talking about when it comes to the freedom of speech. Absolutely. Jesse is completely ignorant. Yes, that attorney did go in there and imply a threat to the other commissioners. Tell the other commissioners, do not be scared of a defamation lawsuit from Chief Ramie. That would open up discovery. That would get you a day. Okay? How do I know? Been there twice.
I have 3 questions. First, I have facts. I'm not dealing with speculation of facts, and I do have respect. And this is the respect I give you. In this present problem you have, and you have a problem, and I told you you're putting yourself in a box.
Rich Walker, I love it.
You don't have any say in this. Young lady up there has to say. She has it. So no matter what you say, she's in charge.
She answers to them, though, Rich.
Number 2, the state is a no-fault state. That means the person can hire and fire. The person that is in charge of hiring and firing is in charge. And she doesn't have to have a reason, or he doesn't have to have a reason to fire.
Rich is half correct on the facts. It's her with the confirmation and the vote of the council, okay? He's half right.
Bottom line is, he doesn't, or it does not have to have a reason. No fault state. You have to go with that. The office of city manager has exercised that right quite often. That's why she has lawsuits against her. Or we have lawsuits against her. So you got to consider, first of all, you don't have anything to say. And you're saying us, and the people, we don't have anything to say. So we're out of the equation.
Rich, the commissioners do.
The office of the city manager. She has to make it, he has to make it, or it has to make it.
She works at the discretion or the pleasure of them, according to the charter. 3 of them can fire her, Rich.
This has been said with all due respect. It puts everybody in their place. They should honor that.
Mr. Hines.
Now here comes George Hines. I like George Hines. I consider him a buddy of mine, a friend of mine. Known him for a long time, but boy, we disagree on this one, George.
My address is on record for a long time.
Could you pull your mic up just a little bit? Thank you.
The problem is confidentiality. everyone on the dais have a confidentiality clause you should sign every year. So everything you do should be confidential. The citizens in this city that keep complaining about the city, they're not the only one living in the city. You don't represent just one group of people, you represent everyone. There's more than 20,000 people living in the city of Lynn Haven. So if you got 20 to 100 people that's complaining, they're not complaining for everybody in the city. Everybody in the city is not on the internet. So we don't do who did what, who shot John when John got shot, or who shot John and why. Some of us don't even care about it. We just care about the results. And the law states what it states. This has been a free will country and a free will state for longer than I've been living. And I'm 71 years old. It don't make sense to argue about stuff that's already in the system. Let the system run its course. What happens, happens. This is a city ran by the city manager, not by the mayor, not by the commissioners.
At the pleasure of the commission.
All you commissioners get together, fire the city manager, then y'all can run the city, but you still have to get another city manager because that's the charter.
That's right.
So everyone up there have one vote only, including the one that's not here. So do what you put there to do, represent the city and not a group of people. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
George is a very wonderful, kind man. Also, our military.
1208 Massachusetts Avenue. First of all, I want to say that I've never been suppressed here at the mic. I'm kind of a conflicting speaker once in a while. I'll speak my piece. I've never felt stifled here. Second thing, it's an honor to speak behind Army chevrons. Listen to what he said. I don't know him, but I guarantee you he's wise. Okay?
George Hines.
Two analogies I want to bring. A few years back, when I had lived here about 10 years, I get a phone call one night. It's my younger daughter speaking. If you've got daughters, you'll get these calls. Daddy, I wrecked my car. Are you okay, sweetie? Are the men with blue lights there yet? Yeah, but I'm hiding in the house across the street because I was told if I'm not there, they can only get me for leaving the scene, not DUI. That's my 18-year-old, and she did that. The only person that got wrecked over the coals was me and my insurance company. And I would like to know I think this is a good time for lessons learned. I think it's time for you and your staff to go back and recount sign on documents, even for you as a contract officer, or is the city protected contracting with me? Do we understand what an at-will state is? We moved a company here, me and my mentor did, to Florida, with the express reason of getting out of some of this egregious legislation and litigation. We did it. We saved $500,000 a year in extraneous litigation moving from the state of Maryland to Florida. It didn't mean you'd be mean to people unnecessarily, but the employee didn't run the company anymore. And the only thing I'll leave you with is I can feel the palpable anger here. We got to do better than that. Because when we get angry, what do? We lose 30 IQ points.
Like
we become
imbeciles. Last time, come on, man.
Attorney, don't you win if you can make the other guy angry? He generally gets stupid, doesn't he?
Leave that up to
That's my take on this.
visual observations.
Stay the course. Yes, something needs to happen. The public is fiercely angry. We need to restore our faith in who's running it.
So is Judy Vandegrift. Hey, by the way.
Thank you. Additional public commentary.
Gentlemen, first of all, God bless you. Thank you for your service. Sounds like you served as well. But our daughters are not the police chief. Okay, they're not under the policies and procedures of the city. Come on, man.
Reese Russell, I live at 720 West 8th Street. I heard a lot of facts today, but I would like you all to hear a fact from an 81-year-old resident who has lost faith in the people that I trusted. That is a fact.
God bless you, man.
It doesn't matter to me what somebody does in the privacy of their home. That's their castle. But when they take their actions out in public
with a badge
and something happens, and for whatever reason, yes, this has been blown up on social media. Social media can be good.
Say my name.
It can help get the word out about a lot of things.
Say my name. I broke the story.
But people need a forum.
I feel like Ali.
And some of us are scared. When you get to be my age, you want to have trust in the people that are there. And I personally don't have a problem with anybody unless they attack me. None of you have attacked me, so I'm okay. But the bottom line is, I think a lot of people like me don't get up and talk very often because we think it doesn't do any good. I would like to think it does some good. But I think a lot of us are scared. And just like when you're small children and you're scared, you run to your parents. And your parents are supposed to make the boogeyman go away. Well, we as citizens have no other place to go but to the commission.
And they are
all of you. And I know that sometimes it gets heated because people are human.
That's right.
But please remember, some of us out here are scared. We don't know what you know because you can't tell us all. And I appreciate that. And I do understand the law because I worked in it for several years. I guess I've read some things differently than what this attorney has said. I have my own opinions, but I can see, I read things. I mean, they're in black and white. I didn't make them up. I just get confused when I hear such conflicting statements, and on top of being a little bit afraid and losing trust, I question why I want to live here, and I'm serious about that. I've been here 19 years. I want to stay. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional public commentary.
I want to say that there was so much humility, vulnerability, honesty, wisdom in her comments. And I just found it to be beautiful.
Ron Keel. I live at 3014 Harrier Street. So my community right now that I live in my neighborhood, we're actually not even talking so much about the Ricky Ramie issue at all. One of the things that was a discussion, a topic last night was actually something you talked about freedom of speech. And by the way, every meeting that I've ever came to, I haven't seen you try to make sure nobody can talk. However, last meeting, Mr. Mayor, you're wrong. Reason why you were wrong is because each and every single one of you guys that sit up there on that board, we put you there. Jamie Warwick wanted something on an agenda. Whatever reason you decided to decline it or whatever, I asked him to talk about the issue. These people back here, they wanted to hear about it. Sam's a friend of mine. People come to his house. He gets flooded with phone calls. People in the city want answers.
You're getting answers today.
Yes, I know.
He can't resist.
I'm actually happy about that. But we should have had answers a long time ago, in my opinion. Doesn't have to be right, doesn't have to be wrong. I just wanted you guys to remember that we put you there. None of you guys have any power. We do. Citizens of this community. I had to say.
Thank you.
Ron Keel, he's
Additional
running
public
for county
commentary.
commission, by the way. Ron Keel,
Mr. Gray.
county commission. And they do have power, by the way, Ron. And you're right, we did put him there.
Two
Resident.
things to consider.
Would you please state your name for the record, please?
Sorry. Brian Gray, 1513 East Ninth Street.
Thank you.
Two things to consider. This is not an isolated incident. This is the third incident in probably the last 3 years, considering choices that our chief law enforcement officer of Lynn Haven has made. Number two, if it's protected health information is such a major issue, 3 times he got in his truck, got out, left, got pulled over, changed his information, got out again. So 3 different times he got out of his truck, got in it. So not sure why that's a big issue. Thank you.
Talk about
Thank you. Additional public comment.
talk about respecting military veterans, guys. That is a 3-time combat veteran right there.
John Bailey, 6412 Pine Drive. Mr. Marcy's, has Garrity law changed at all? Because under Florida statute 112.532, the Officer Bill of Rights, any individual law enforcement officer who is interviewed during an internal affairs investigation, they cannot use any of that material in the criminal investigation. That has been long time standing practice. That is separate. You can put Ricky Ramie on an internal affairs investigation and it can go forward. It's so supposed to be recorded. All the information is supposed to be taken, kept in a file. There is no reason why you guys should be stifled with an HR issue. That issue occurred while he was off duty, so did the medical incident. He knowingly and willfully went over there, pulled out his card and did not place it because he knew he was intoxicated. He then knowingly and willfully left the scene. Nothing has changed about that. You guys found out later. I see some of you guys are meeting with your own attorneys. Your firm has a fiduciary responsibility to the city, just like you do.
That's right.
You represented Ramie in lawsuits also for the city. Did you withdraw your representation of Ricky Ramie? I don't remember that. You guys aren't being given all the facts. Okay, this is not the first incident. I came up here and talked the last time, Mr. Ward, where you were given false information that the material that was put on the docket on PACER with the federal court by this attorney here was improper.
Mm-hmm.
It was out. The public could download it and the public could see it. That's what's opened this Pandora box of corruption here in Bay County.
That's right.
You guys don't like it, but that's what the FBI came up with. It's time for you guys to be leaders and step up and do something. It may hurt. It sucks. But that's what we're faced with. Larry Bassford also dropped charges against Ricky Ramie's son in Washington County. There have been attorneys disbarred for not citing conflicts.
Mm-hmm.
He knew he had a conflict. I've heard he went to the state's attorney's office and went over there and tried to have this trooper drop the charges. This is not right.
Uh-huh.
There's a double standard here in Bay County and it needs to stop. I don't know if your firm has a conflict. One of your partners is related to the St. Joe attorneys. They'll represent several cities. This needs to stop.
Mm-hmm.
The FBI isn't done. They're still here. Good luck.
They're back. So John Bailey works with Marie Maddox law firm, by the way. He's not just blowing smoke. He works with Marie Maddox law firm.
Continue with status. Is there someone had additional commentary? You okay? All right. No. There's a motion on the floor to continue with
There was a second.
Status quo that we maintain based on the recommendation from the labor attorney.
Pat Bruno made the motion. Vandergrift seconded it. Mayor.
Motion, there's a second. City manager, you call the vote.
Okay.
Commissioner Perno?
Yes.
Commissioner Vandegrift?
Yes.
Commissioner Ward?
No.
Commissioner Peebles?
I'm going to say no because the recommendation is based on nothing changing since we learned about the incident, but things have changed. So I'm going to say no.
Mayor Nelson?
For point of clarity, what could we pause here and could we understand what has changed? Since we found out about the incident on February the 14th till today, what exactly has changed?
You didn't find out about it from my
Thank
show.
you for bringing this up so I can talk about it. So for me, the one thing that
And I should say the facts that have changed.
Yeah. So we did not have the public records from Florida Highway Patrol until March 7th. So I had not seen those. Second, I just learned today that it's not illegal to put him on administrative leave. That's also new to me. So based on the facts that I know, they have changed.
Okay. All right. Yes, meeting adjourned.
All right. This is fantastic. So did you catch what Jesse Nelson just said? Jesse Nelson just said that the facts are they learned about it February 14th. This has been a phenomenal meeting. He and Vicky Gaynor keep saying during today that they learned about this on February 14th. That's when I broke the story. But I didn't learn about it until about a month after Vicky Gaynor said she learned about it. Vicky Gaynor said that she learned about it in mid-January. That's what she said a couple of meetings ago. So, I'm going to put together all of the comments. See, what's happened is it's gone on and they are forgetting what they said. I love it. But geez, it cracks me up. Everybody said, we found out about it on Valentine's Day. So far, only Tho Bishop has attributed the source of how you found out about it on Valentine's Day. And I'm going to start walking around. I'm going to walk into the next meeting like this. Say my name. What's my name? I know y'all don't know that story. That's when Terrell, what was his name? Ernie Terrell. In 1967, he kept calling Muhammad Ali Cassius Clay. And Muhammad said, say my name. And Ernie Terrell wouldn't say it. Now, Ernie Terrell was also a champion. They were both champions of different divisions. And Ernie was 6'6", and the fight was a serious fight. But YouTube that one and see what happened to Terrell when he wouldn't say his name. That's going to be me walking in there. You better say my name. All right, I'm out of here. I wanted you to see this, and I wanted you to know that. Let me recap this new information, though. I have been telling you that the FDLE says, and they certify law enforcement officers, okay? I've been slightly wrong about this, and I want to make sure you know these details, okay? There is a refinement in this, and it's important, and I'm being serious now. I've been telling you that the city of Lynn Haven is breaking the law because they are not conducting an internal investigation, right? So it says, according to Florida statutes and administrative code, if an officer commits an act of misconduct, the officer's employing agency has cause to believe that the officer has not maintained the minimum standards to be a certified and or has committed a violation of good moral character, then the employing agency must conduct an internal investigation according to state statute. So I've been saying that the city is violating the law according to FDLE if they do not do that. And it's triggered by an arrest. See that right in the middle? That's what triggers a case to be opened by arrest. Now, today I learned that there is a nuance in the law, of course, and I need to make sure I correct myself and that you know these details, okay? Here's the detail. Ricky Ramie is not a law enforcement officer. Not according to state statute. This is unbelievable. I didn't know this. Statute 112, 531, Section 3. Law enforcement officer means any person other than a police chief. Look it up for yourself, okay? Florida statute 112.531. 112.531. I didn't know that. He's considered a municipal officer. So really, this should go in front of Governor DeSantis. See, municipal officer suspension removal from office. Now, okay, he's a municipal officer because he's appointed. But even before that stage, though, the commission and the city manager still can do the same thing because what they are responsible for is to make sure that their employees follow the policies and procedures that they signed in place. And the police, if you're a police officer, as Jerry pointed out with the Beacon of Bay County, they've signed something, policies and procedures that if they don't follow, they can be terminated with or without a medical condition. Okay? And so he has violated the police standards of conduct by the city. Now, the attorneys and Mayor Nelson and Vicky Gaynor, along with Pat Perno and Judy Vandergriff, they would have you believe that the city is responsible for due process. No, it is not. That is the state attorney's responsibility. The city is responsible to ensure that that they follow the policies and procedures of the city. Those are separate and apart from each other. Whether or not he is prosecuted or convicted or acquitted is separate and apart from whether he violated the city's policies. He can violate the city's policies and be terminated with bad conduct and unethical behavior, even if it was not a crime. It's very important, this distinction. But I wanted to correct myself as well, okay? I am not, if you know me at all, I am not concerned about being right. I'm concerned about being accurate and correct, okay? I'm glad that today I am more correct and accurate than I was yesterday. And thank you to those of you who helped me understand. I have more people than you would believe who are officers of the court, be it a judge or an attorney or a law enforcement officer, yeah, who teach me. And I'm a pretty good pupil, right? And I appreciate those of you who brought this to my attention. All right, with that, I want to thank, of course, the Unknown Patriot for your support, and for all of you who throw a tip in the tip jar so I can do this by being a patron as little as $5 a month. And I know those of you who crowdfund this show for as little as $5 a month know that that's the best $5 a month you spend. You probably go around saying, the best $5 a month I spend is on the Bernie Thompson Show. I've earned that today. Have I not? You can do that at patreon.com/Bernie Thompson. It's anonymous, by the way, anonymous, easy, and you can quit at any time. $5 an hour, $5 in an hour and 41 minutes. Boy, I did better than that when I worked at Baskin Robbins in 1984. I made $3.35 an hour. And I made the best banana splits of anybody in there. Just axe. All right. I'm out of here. Boy, lots. The biggest takeaway from this, I think, is that Mayor Nelson and Vicky Gaynor cannot keep their timeline right. They're off by a month. Off by a month. And I'll show you that because I'm getting to work on putting that video together for you right now.